already. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to come on. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to check my entrance way to make sure my door operates smoothly. Okay, that my handrails are nice and tight and they're not damaged. Okay, and that the entranceway, the floor, okay, there's no tripping hazard and it's not excessively worn and there's no loose fibers. Okay. 3 points contact. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to perform my safe start. Okay, so in order for me to do that, I'm going to first check my seatbelt. All right, I want to make sure that my seatbelt is in good condition, that there's no cuts, cracks, or any frays on my seatbelt, and that it buckles nice and secure for me. Okay, I'm going to cover the brake, have the brake set, bus in neutral. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and start my my vehicle. When I start the bus, okay, I'm going to look into my dash here, and I have an ABS light and a DEF, a diesel exhaust fluid light, that I want to see come on and then go off. If they stay on, that would indicate that there's a malfunction and that those systems need service. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my bus on. My ABS light went off. Here's my DEF light. Okay, came on and went off, so those are functioning properly for me. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start my bus. Okay, I'm going to check my horn, make sure my horn's good. Okay.
Kevin, before you start, can I just say something real quick?
Yes.
Sure. So normally when we do the air brake test, this will be closed, but since everybody's here to observe, we'll leave it open for now. But just remember, make sure it's closed. Thank you, sir.
You got it. Yeah, that's correct. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and perform my air brake check. Okay. The first test I'm going to do is my low air warning device. I have two devices. I have a visual in the dash, and I have an audible buzzer. Okay, both of those devices need to come on no lower than 55 psi or at a level specified by the manufacturer. Okay, my devices came on. I got the audible and the visual. They came on at 70 psi. Okay, that's a good test. All right, my next test is going to be my air compressor, air governor cut out or cut off. Okay, that needs to cut off between 120 and 140 psi. Okay, waiting for my needles to stabilize. Stop rising. Okay, my needles have stopped rising at 130 psi. That's my cut off or cut out. All right. My next test is going to be my applied air loss test. All right. For this test, I'm going to shut the engine off. Okay, and I can't lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute. And while the engine is off, I'm also listening for air leaks. Okay, going to cover the brake, park the brake. Okay, waiting for my needles to stabilize. Okay, my primary needle stabilized and settled at 120 psi. Okay, so my minute to test is going to start now. During this minute, I'm also listening for air leaks. Okay, got 10 more seconds. Okay, that concludes my minute. I'm still at 120 psi. I didn't lose any psi during that minute, and I didn't hear any air leaks. My next test and final test is my spring brake test. Okay, my spring brake needs to engage between 20 and 45 psi or at a level specified by the manufacturer. Okay, my spring brake engaged at 45 psi, so that's a good test. Okay, that concludes my air brake check. Now I'm going to go ahead and fire up the bus. Okay, so the next two tests I'm going to perform once I get a full tank of air, okay, is going to be my parking brake test, okay, and then followed by my service brake test. Would you like me to do them or explain them?
Can you explain how you're going to do it?
Okay. All right, so I'll do my parking brake test first. So once I had a full tank, okay, in order for me to perform my parking brake test, what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to put the bus in gear, let it roll forward a little bit, and then apply the parking brake, and the bus should hold. Okay, then followed by my service brake check. Then what I'm going to do is accelerate up to 5 miles an hour, apply the service brake, and see if the steering wheel either turns to the left or to the right. Okay, if it does, the bus is not safe to go on the road. And that's my parking brake and service brake. Okay? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue inside here, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and check my indicator lights in my dash to make sure they work. So I'm going to go ahead and check my left turn signal, my right turn signal, and I'm going to engage my four-way hazards, okay, and then I'm going to do my high beam. Okay, make sure they work. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and look at my wipers. Make sure that my wipers operate properly and the washer fluid works as well. Okay, both, all the speeds. Okay, they're working fine. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my defroster. I want to make sure that the defroster, the heater, and the cool part of the defroster works, and the fan speed all works. Low, medium, high. Okay, very good. Next, I want to go ahead and cycle my wheelchair lift. I want to make sure that my wheelchair lift deploys properly and stows properly. You want to cycle the wheelchair lift?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the bus. And then I'm gonna go ahead and turn the power on. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead. While I'm deploying the lift, I'm listening for any unusual noises, any damage, any leaks. Okay, that's fully deployed. Now I'm going to fully stow it to make sure that there's no other damage when I go to stow and no other leaks or noise. Okay, that concludes my wheelchair cycle lift as well. Okay, now if I can get you to help me with some of my lights. So I want to check my clearance lights, make sure all my clearance lights are on. Then my left turn signal, my right turn signal. Okay, then my four ways. Okay, then my high beams. Okay, then my low beam. Perfect. Can you go ahead and check the back for me? So this, guys, I got to close the door and unkneel it so the brake lights work. Brake light. Okay. Brake light on, brake light off. There you go. Okay. Wait for the examiner to come back. Okay, so next thing I'm going to check is my windshield. I want to make sure that my windshield is not cracked, there's no illegal stickers or any obstructions on my windshield, and that it's clean and in good condition. Next, I want to check my mirrors, both my inside mirrors and my passenger right side mirror and my driver's side mirror, right? And that they're properly adjusted to me, that they're clean and not damaged, and no obstruction. Okay? All right, so I took care of that. All right. Next thing I want to do is, if you can come inside, I'm going to go ahead and check the inside of my bus. Okay, so first thing I'm going to take a look at are all my cameras. Make sure that they're clean, not damaged, and in working order. Making sure my cameras are in good condition. Then I'm going to continue to take a look at my floor. I want to make sure that my floor has no cracks or holes or any bubbles that could indicate an issue with my cross members or my frame. Okay. Also, that there's no loose fibers or any tripping hazards on my floor. Okay. Now I'm going to go check my seating. Make sure that all my seats are in good condition and that they're nice and tight and secure to the floor, including the seat bottom, all the seats. Okay, coming all the way up, checking all the seats, everything is good. Okay, next I'd like to talk about my emergency exits. Okay, the rear hatch here in the back of the bus is an emergency exit, and then all my windows with red handles are emergency exits as well, including my front door. If I needed to use my front door as an emergency exit, there's a little hammer. I break the glass, remove the glass, open up the valve, and my front door would be an emergency exit. But I'm going to go for the examiner to demonstrate an emergency exit here with the red handle. That's my emergency exit. Okay? Right, I think I took care of everything inside here. All right, let's go ahead and go outside. 3 points of contact. Okay, so I'm going to come over to this side here, and I'm going to go ahead and inspect my battery. Check the door, make sure the battery compartment door is in good condition, that it opens and closes properly, and the door itself is not damaged. Next, I'm going to make sure that my battery itself is secure, and that the cables and the connections are nice and tight, and that there's no corrosion, and my batteries are in good condition. Okay, next time while I'm over here, I'm going to talk about my steering box. Okay, I want to make sure that my steering box is mounted securely. Okay, that my links, my arms, and my rods, okay, are not worn or cracked. Okay, and that the joints and the connecting rods are not loose or worn, and that the connecting rods aren't missing any nuts or any cotter pins. Okay, and the steering box is mounted securely without any leaks. And the hoses going to the steering box are not leaking, cut, cracked, or frayed, or damaged. Okay, that's my steering box and steering link. Okay, now I'm going to check my outside mirror here. Okay, the housing, the turn signal. Make sure that the housing itself and both mirrors, flat and convex, are in good condition, that they're not cracked or damaged, okay, and that they're not missing. I'm going to come up here and take a look at all of my lights from the top, my clearance lights. I know they're working because you checked them for me, and to make sure that they're the proper color. Amber in front, and I need to have red in the rear. Also that all the lenses are present and not broken on this side. All right. I'm also going to take a look on the outside of my windshield. I want to make sure that the windshield isn't cracked, hasn't chips, any illegal stickers on the outside, okay, and that it's clean and clear of any damage. And then also looking at my wiper arm. I want to make sure both arms have the proper tension, okay, and that the blades are all the way from the top to the bottom are in good condition, okay. Next, I'm going to look at my lenses. I want to make sure my headlight lenses, high beam and low beam, my turn signal lenses are not damaged, not missing. Okay, both sides, and make sure both headlights, high and low, are all in good condition. Okay, then taking a look at my passenger side mirror. Make sure that the mirror housing is not broken. Okay, that it's in good condition, it's not damaged, and that the glass in the housing is in good condition and not damaged. Okay? All right, coming over here now, I'm still checking to make sure I did the door. Got the door. Okay? All right, I'm coming over to my front axle. Okay, first thing I'm going to talk about is my wheel. Okay, ICD, inflation, condition, and depth. So to check my inflation, okay, I would check it with the tire gauge right here at the valve stem, making sure that my valve stem is not damaged and that the cap is present, checking my inflation. Okay, then I would check the condition of the tire, make sure that there's no cuts, cracks, chunks, or bubbles are present in my tire, and that it's evenly worn. Okay, and then the depth, there's a depth gauge that I can use. Okay, I need to make sure that my tread depth in my front tires are no less than 4/32 of an inch, using the tread depth gauge for my front tire. Okay, now coming into my rim, I want to make sure that my rim is not dented, that there's no rust trails that would indicate a loose wheel, and that the rim doesn't show any illegal welds. Okay, then we're going down to my lug nuts. I want to make sure that all the studs for the lug nuts are there, that none of the lug nuts are missing, and I don't see any rust trails from the lug nut that would indicate a loose wheel. Next, I'm going to go to my hub oil seal. I want to make sure that my hub oil seal is not damaged, but all the nuts that hold it there are present. Okay, and if there was a sight glass, I would make sure that it had the proper oil level in my hub oil seal. Okay, so that's my wheel. Next, I'm going to go to my brakes. Okay, I want to check my brake rotor. I want to make sure my brake rotor is in good condition. There's no cracks or holes in my brake rotor, and that it's mounted properly and not missing any bolts. Then I want to check my brake pads. Okay, I want to make sure my brake pads are present, that they're not worn excessively thin, and there's no contaminants such as grease or oil on my brake pads. Okay, now I'm going to go to my suspension. Okay, I want to check my air mounts, make sure that my air mounts aren't missing any bolts, okay, and that the airbag connected to the air mount is in good condition and that it's not leaking or missing any bolts. Okay, and then I want to also check my shock absorber. Make sure that my shock absorber is mounted properly, that the shock absorber is not damaged, and there's no leaks coming from my shock absorber. Okay? All right, checking all my reflectors, making sure that they're all the proper color. Orange in the front, in the side, red in the rear. Okay? Coming down, taking all the view of the reflector. Okay, this is my regular diesel fuel tank. Okay? The door to the fuel tank, make sure it's in good condition, that there's no damage to the door. Okay? That the cap is intact and it's tight and not leaking, and that the tank is not damaged, mounted properly, and that there's no leaks to my fuel tank. Okay? All right, coming over to my rear tire. Okay, I got 2 tires there. Gonna start with the wheel. Okay, so inflation, in condition, and depth. Right, so I want to go check my inflation again with the tire gauge, going right to the valve stem, making sure with the tire gauge that the valve stem is not damaged and the cap is present. Okay, and that I can properly check my inflation with that tire gauge with the valve stem that's not damaged. Okay, then I'm going to go to my rim. I'm sorry, the condition of the tire. Right, I want to make sure that there's no chunks or cracks or any bubbles on my tire, and that both tires are evenly worn. Okay, and that the tread depth, checking with the tread depth gauge, that the tread depth is no less than 2/32 of an inch with my rear tire tread depth. Okay. Now I'm going to the rim. I want to make sure that the rim is not dented. Okay, that there's no illegal welds. Okay, no rust trails that would indicate a loose wheel. Okay, and then going into all my lug nuts, making sure all the studs are there, that all the lug nuts are there and present, and that there's no rust trail coming from any lug nut that would indicate a loose wheel. Okay, then followed by my hub oil seal or axle seal. Want to make sure there's no missing bolts or nuts. Okay, and that there's no damage, and that there's no leaks. Okay. Now I'm going to go into my brakes. So I'm going to check for the front wheel as well. I want to check my brake hoses and lines, all right, because I want to make sure that there's no cuts, cracks, or frays in my brake lines or hoses, okay, that supply the air, all right, to my brakes, and then also the rotor, making sure that my rotor has no missing bolts, there's no cracks or holes in my rotor, and then followed by my brake pads. I want to make sure that my brake pads are not worn excessively thin, and that there isn't any contaminants such as grease or oil on my brake pads. Okay, so I included the brake hoses and lines as well. Then we're going to go to my suspension. Okay, I'm going to check my air mount, make sure that my air mount is mounted securely, that there's no missing bolts to my air mount, and then connected to that is my air bag. I want to make sure that my airbag has no missing bolts, that there's no damage or leaks to my airbag. All right, and it's in good condition. Followed by my shock absorber. I want to make sure that my shock absorber is mounted properly, no damage at all to my shock absorber, and that there's no leaks to my shock absorber. Okay? All right, followed by the turn signal lenses, making sure they're all in good condition. Then I'm going to check my diesel exhaust fluid door. Again, make sure that the door is in good condition, right? There's no damage. Now I'm going to check the tank, the blue cap. Okay, make sure that it's tight, present, not missing, not damaged, and that the DEF tank is mounted securely, and that there's no leaks coming from my DEF fluid tank. Okay, coming in here, there's my reflector, proper color in the rear. It's not damaged, it's red. Another one right here, okay, proper color reflector in the rear. Through here, okay, is inside here is my power steering fluid reservoir tank. Okay, there's a sight glass inside there that I want to make sure that the tank itself is not damaged. Okay, the hoses going to the tank are not damaged or leaking, and that the tank isn't leaking at all as well. Okay, and through the sight glass, it's at the proper power steering fluid level. All right. Okay, coming to the back. All right, starting up at the top. Okay, I want to make sure that my clearance lights are the proper color, that all the lenses are there, they're working because I know you checked them for me. Okay, and they're not damaged. So they're red. Okay, moving my way down, I got my brake light lenses, making sure that they're not damaged. Okay, all present, no cracks or anything like that. All right, then I'm going to come down to the door to the engine compartment itself. I want to make sure that the door opens and then closes smoothly with no issues, and that the door itself is not damaged, and the shock things here aren't leaking as well. Okay, now my engine compartment, I'm going to come over here. Okay, and this is where my engine coolant tank is, my reservoir. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that when I look through the sight glass, it's at the proper level, okay, of my coolant level. If it was low and I had to add coolant, I would simply add it right in here, okay? And making sure that the cap itself and the tank aren't leaking, right? Now I'm going to check my engine oil. So I come to this yellow dipstick, okay, I would pull it out, wipe it clean, go back inside, and pull it back out to make sure that my engine oil level is at the proper operating level. If it was low and I had to add oil, I come over here and I'd add oil right here, all right? Next, I'm going to look at all my hoses. I want to make sure that all my hoses are not damaged, not leaks, there's no cuts, cracks, or frays, okay, and they're mounted properly. Okay, and again, that I don't see any leaks. All right. Okay, so looking at that, did all that. Close all of that. Real quick summary. I don't know. I think that concludes. Probably missed something. Of course, I always do. I'm not as good as Manny.
Oh,
right. But I think that
good,
concludes my my pre-trip. All right. So what did I? How did I do?
Did anybody notice him missing something?
What did I miss?
FTs.
Oh, the FET.
all
You're
right.
You're right.
Do you guys have your study sheet?
You're right. I missed
So-
it. I'm not perfect.
It's
Okay,
all right,
so-
but I think it was still a pass, right?
Yeah, still pass.
You're
you
right.
guys notice that it says side of the vehicle, and you gotta check the frame, the cross members.
Oh,
You did
that
on the
too.
side of the bus.
Yeah, you did the inside. You did the
You did
inside.
inside, but
the
you gotta
inside,
talk.
but
You
you
gotta
didn't do
talk
the
over here where it
You're
says
right.
side of the vehicle,
go.
right? So you have to talk about the frame.
Sorry,
here.
fellas. And
So
That was good.
I hope it was.
those are the two things that I noticed that
Right.
you missed. Okay, so FETs and the
FET and the
frame
frame.
over here. Okay.
What was it? Wazzy, you had something?
I don't know if we're supposed to mention the exhaust.
No.
No.
I don't know if we're supposed to mention
We
the
missed that.
four-way flasher turner. I don't
missed
know
it.
if we're supposed to mention the reverse lights.
So
He talked about the lenses.
I did the
He
lenses.
said-
I
He, said
summarized.
he called all the lenses. That's why I give him the point. If he actually sometimes Carol does light by light,
Oh.
my turn signal, my brake light. He talked about his brake light, all his lenses on the back. That's why I give him the point.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I just remember.